So it was mid-June, maybe late June, I'm not really sure. Sometime in June, right after they started opening things up after the shutdown in 2020. And Jamie and I were just feeling really housebound, so we decided we were going to take a one-day mental health trip and go to my favorite place, the beach. So we got up in the morning, we drove down, and we were just going to, go look at the ocean for a couple hours, walk on the boardwalk, eat at a great restaurant, and drive back home that night. The plan seemed easy enough. But while we were there, we decided to visit a place that we have visited many times before. There's a spot near the ocean where you can drive onto the beach to go fishing. And because of Jamie's disability, he can't walk on sand. So when we've gone there in the off season, like over the winter or early spring, we've driven to this place. And we would, be able to see the ocean and just kind of experience it a little bit while not affecting his disability. So here we are, it's June now, it's peak season, and we decide let's just go and do this for a couple minutes. So that's what we did. Little did we know that in June, sand is not as compact, it is much fluffier. And we drove about, halfway on the little path between the state park and the ocean, and our tires started spinning and spinning. And it's kind of like it was, when your tires get stuck on snow and they just keep spinning and spinning. And all of a sudden that feeling sets in of, we are in so much trouble. Now, whenever I get that feeling of, oh my goodness, we are in so much trouble, I start nervously laughing. And truly, this was not the time to laugh. And Jamie was not nervously laughing. And suddenly, okay, not the time to laugh. We've got to figure out what to do because we are stuck. And so we're Googling and we're trying to figure out, how do you get tires out of stuck sand? And we're realizing the only thing to do is shovel, but we don't have a shovel. And Jamie, with his disability, he can't get out and shovel. And I was pretty sure I couldn't shovel us out. And so we're just like begging God to help us because we are stuck in the sand. And a few minutes later, God did help us, and he sent a deputy or something. There was like a sheriff or something came along, and they informed us that yes, we were stuck in the sand and the only way out was to dig out. And they asked if we had deflated our tires, which we didn't know we had to, and of course we had not. So they went through all the process of deflating the tires and digging us out, and then they asked if we had a fishing license, because apparently the place we were going was only for fishers. So we were not fishermen, did not have a fishing license, so we got fined for not having the right fishing license on the sand. And so while they're digging us out and the guy's writing up the fine, and I'm imagining, how bad is this going to be? Is our car going to be ruined? Are our tires going to be okay? Can we even afford this fine? Which wasn't that bad, actually. But I still don't advise doing it. It's a bad idea to do this. But as this is all going through my mind, I can feel my body is tensing up and my stomach's starting to hurt. And I'm just starting to have that feeling of this is so bad. We drove 4 hours just to turn around. I haven't even seen the ocean yet. We haven't eaten out yet. And now we're going to have to turn around and we're going to have this horrible, tense car ride all the way home of whose fault is this? And all these thoughts are going through my mind because when I was growing up, that's what would have happened. If something terrible like this would have happened, it would have been trip over and a big fight in the way home. And that's how my dad handled life. And so I was just, bracing myself for all this badness that was to come. And suddenly it occurs to me, almost like a lightning bolt, Des, you're an adult now. You get to choose how you respond to this. You're the one who decides, do you go home and turn around and storm off in anger, or do you keep going with your day? And as this began to settle in me throughout the day, I realized this is the beauty of the freedom that we have as women. We can choose how we respond to things. And that's what Jamie and I did. Once we made sure the car was okay and we made sure everything was safe and fine and the tires got reinflated, and we asked God to forgive us for going in the fishing place without having a fishing license, even though we were generally stupid about the whole thing, we went on with our night. We kept going and went to the boardwalk. We enjoyed the food at the restaurant. We went home, we paid the fine, but we chose how our attitude was going to be. And as I was writing the book, Ageless Truths, I realized this is something you learn as you get older that you really wish you knew when you were younger. That you get to choose how your attitude is going to be about things. You can choose if you're going to be angry. You can choose if you're going to be a victim. You can choose if you're going to take your, discomfort out in the whole world, or you can choose contentment. You can choose how to trust God in situations. You can choose to have a good attitude. And I think as we're going through 2021, and so many of us thought 2020, when it was over, life would, or we hoped when 2020 was over, life would get better. And then 2021 came and we're like, it's still really difficult. We're still faced with really challenging circumstances. But the same truth holds true. We can choose how we will react to those things. We can choose whether we're going to choose to love people or hate people who disagree with us. We can choose whether we're going to trust God in challenging times or whether we are going to react in panic and fear. We can choose to make the most of the situation that we have and the challenges that we're facing, or we can become angry and bitter and just toxic. This morning before we did this, Jamie said to me, Facebook is just toxic today. But we can choose if we want to be toxic or we want to be a light in the dark world. So I want to encourage you that if you haven't already learned this truth in your own life, to think about it today, to realize that you have choices. You can choose your attitude. You can choose what direction your life is going to go. If you're doing something you don't like it, you can choose to change it. You have freedom and you have choices thanks to God's free will. And you can determine your attitude and you can determine how things turn out. And it's funny when you start choosing attitudes that bring life, that bring joy, that choose to trust in God, your whole entire life and outlook on life and the things that you actually go through begin to change. So that's my silly story. That's what I learned from it. And I encourage you to remember the next time you're faced with a circumstance where you don't know what you're going to do, remember, you can choose your attitude.